So you're considering going to psychiatric nurse practitioner school. You're trying to see if it's worth it in 2022. And you're trying to determine, should I go, should I not go? Will it even be worth it because of oversaturation? And so many different things involved. But at the end of the day, it's deciding if it's worth it for you. And in this video, I'm going to be going over 5 things that you should consider prior to applying to psychiatric nurse practitioner school to determine if it's right for you. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new to this channel, let me formally introduce myself. I'm Darty. I'm a board certified psychiatric nurse practitioner, and in this channel I go over several different topics to educate the public about mental health, ways to improve your lifestyle, topics related to nursing, nurse practitioners, and specifically psychiatric nurse practitioners like myself. So if you are interested in any of these topics, feel free to subscribe. Make sure you like this video and follow me on Instagram at LifeofaPsychNP. So you probably clicked this video because you're interested in finding out if being a psychiatric nurse practitioner and going to psychiatric nurse practitioner school is worth it for you in 2022. And when you think about going to school, especially becoming a psychiatric nurse practitioner, it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years depending on the program that you're interested in, whether or not you're going for a postmaster's or whether or not you're going for a DNP or you're just getting your regular MSN. There's so many different things to kind of consider, especially when applying for these programs. So when you look at it, anywhere from 2 to 3 years or maybe even 4 years depending on your program itself. So you can think about the amount of time, you think about how much can change during that period of time, and that's something you always want to consider, because when you look at it, even when I graduated about 5 years ago, times have definitely changed, especially when it comes to job outlook, when it comes to salary, when it comes to competition. There's so many different things that you have to kind of consider, but at the end of the day you have to look at it and see what's best for you. But I just wanted to kind of make this video because I want to shed light on factors and things that you actually have to think about, so you can go back to the drawing board and determine if it's right for you to go to school, or maybe you should just stay a nurse and kind of ride it out. But ultimately, like I said, it comes down to you, and I just wanted to give you this information, give you my thoughts, and we'll go from there. So make sure you stay until the very end of the video, because I'm going to be going over my most important one that's going to help you determine if it's right for you. So let's go. So the very first thing that you should consider prior to applying to psychiatric nurse practitioner school in 2022 is competition. So you have to think about competition, whether it's getting into the program or going to the program that you want to go to, what your dream school is, or even your competition when you get outside of school, when you graduate, and when it comes to getting a job. Are you someone that is competitive? Meaning, are you going to be a competitive applicant to go to school, or even a competitive applicant when applying for jobs? Think about your experience. Do you have psych experience? Do you have ER experience? Do you have any type of experience? Think about whether you are certified in other areas. Are you an FNP? Are you someone that's coming from a different type of master's degree, whether it's clinical education, CNL, or nurse anesthesia? Think about your application, how competitive you are going to be when you go to apply to schools, and then how competitive you are when you exit these schools and actually go into the real world and apply into these jobs. Because at the end of the day, you have to think about how competitive you are, because if you want to get the job that you want, or if you want to go to the school that you want to go to, you have to be a competitive applicant. And things to kind of consider are the fact that you have to look at your resume, you have to look at your application, and look at your things that you bring to the table and try to upgrade those things. So if your GPA is relatively low during your BSN program and you want to increase it, maybe consider going to like an educational program for your MSN, or as a clinical nurse leader or something, to kind of bring up that GPA so you can get into the program you want to get to. And when you're already into the program, then maybe think about getting more experience in certain areas, whether it's inpatient psych, outpatient psych, crisis stabilization, whatever the case may be. Make sure you increase those odds of you being competitive, and that's something you have to kind of consider, especially prior to applying to school, because you want to get into that school that you want to go to, and you want to get the job that you want to get to. So you want to make sure you're competitive. So the second thing that you should consider prior to applying to psych nurse practitioner school in 2022 is oversaturation. And I know I made a video about this. I'm definitely going to link it down below, and maybe I'll put something up here. But oversaturation is a real thing. And I'm not saying it's happening everywhere, but there are certain cities and certain locations that you have to consider oversaturation, because more and more jobs are being taken up, and this is causing more of an issue for different situations for people. Meaning, it's causing issues when it comes to salary, opportunity, benefits, so many different factors, because more and more of these new grads are starting to take these jobs because they're getting so desperate in being able to get the job that they want, or just get any job, because they don't want to go back into the nursing world, or, well, we're all nurses, but go back into the bedside nursing world, and they're just willing to take whatever instead of working. And that's something we have to think about. And when you look at oversaturation, I want you to kind of focus in on your area and consider, are you willing to move for a job? Are you willing to go to an area that might be not as desirable compared to other cities like LA, Miami, or New York, or whatever? And you have to consider if you're willing to either move, if you want to just do telepsych, or whatever the case is. You have to think about your location and see if oversaturation is a real thing for you. If you're going into a situation where you know you're not going to want to move, you're in an area that has way too many Psych NPs, way too many schools that are pushing out these Psych NPs, and you're looking at the pay and it's slowly decreasing day by day, year by year, then maybe you might have to think about other options. But for the most part, like I said, it all comes down to you, and you have to determine and think about oversaturation, because it's definitely something in certain areas. I'm not saying all areas, but in certain areas it is. So the third thing that you should consider prior to applying to psychiatric nurse practitioner school is opportunity cost. So when you think about opportunity cost, are you willing to sacrifice, like I said earlier, 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 years of more school, more dedicated time to clinicals, time away from friends, family, in order for you to pursue the opportunity of becoming a psychiatric nurse practitioner while in school? Is it worth it? Is it worth being able to actually go part-time, or maybe even leave work just to be able to go to school, when you can be making money, and maybe even making the same amount of money as an RN by picking up 1 or 2 extra shifts a week or a month? Is it worth it? And at the end of the day, you have to think about if it's worth it for you. For some people it is, and some people it isn't. And ultimately you have to decide, because you are going to be putting in 2 to 3 or even 4 weeks or 4 years of work into becoming a Psych NP. And think about the money being lost, and if the opportunity is great, good. But if you feel like it's not, maybe it's something you have to think about prior to applying to school. So the fourth thing that you have to consider prior to applying to psychiatric nurse practitioner school is, what is your salary range? And at the end of the day, you want to look at what your bottom dollar is, and then what you absolutely want to make. Obviously that's going to fluctuate throughout life, and it's going to fluctuate throughout the next few years if you do apply. But at the end goal is, at the end of the day, you have to determine what's worth it for you or not. And like I said, there are some people out there that are making way less money than an RN as an FNP. But then at the same time, there's some people out there that are FNPs making way more money compared to RNs. And you just have to kind of figure out for you. And the same goes with psychiatric nurse practitioners. Probably not at the lower end where they're making less, but they can make less than Psych NPs. And ultimately, it all depends on the average location, where you're working, what setting you're working in, who you're working for, and if you're working from home, if you're working in the office. There's so many different things to consider, but you have to think about your salary. When you look at the salary now, it might look great, but then a few years down the line, it might be way different. Like I said, when I applied for being a psychiatric nurse practitioner at these jobs, they were offering pretty high amounts, and when I look at it now, you can see the average or the median amount of salary that they're offering is probably anywhere from 5 to 10 or even 15 to 20% less than what they were offering back then. And that's only a 5-year difference. So you have to think about the future when you graduate, when you actually get licensed, when you have the boards, when you're credentialed, and all of those things. And it might be lower than what you see now. So you always have to consider, is it even worth it? Is the salary that I need to actually survive or need to actually be able to stay afloat, am I going to get it? And you have to be realistic about it, because I don't want you to waste all of these time and years thinking you're going to get one thing and then ultimately you might not be able to get it. Like I said, this is not something that's going to last forever. Maybe more and more jobs open up, which I hope, or more and more people are starting to know their worth and absolutely ask for what the most amount of money they can get, which is great. But at the same time, it might not be the case depending on the situation. So definitely think about salary. And yes, I know salary isn't everything, but salary is what's going to keep your kids where you're at, where you're going to be working, where your lifestyle you live. And ultimately, whatever your lifestyle is, if it makes you happy, great. But at the end of the day, you have to consider salary no matter what. So my fifth and final thing that you should consider prior to applying to psychiatric nurse practitioner school in 2022 is you are the biggest factor. And that at the end of the day is you. You have to figure out what's best for you. You have to take in consideration your lifestyle. You have to take into consideration your future, your end goals. You have to try to figure out what's going to be your reason. At the end of the day, I can give you all of these different things to consider, but you are the most important thing that you have to think about. And at the end of the day, you have to decide what's best for you. I'm here just to kind of provide some guidance, but at the end of the day, you have to do what you need to do for yourself. Determine what is best for you, your family, your loved ones, your fur babies, or whoever, but you have to determine it for yourself. Like, are you tired of working bedside? Like, do you want to be more of an influence on the healthcare team? Do you want to diagnose? Do you want to prescribe? Do you want to stop working bedside because you're tired of the daily grind? Are you starting to notice more and more of your body start hurting after your shifts, and you want to go more into talking? Do you want to do therapy? Do you want to go into a different lifestyle other than working in the ICU or with COVID patients or anything? Ultimately, you have to decide what's best for you, because after looking at all of these different things to consider, you have to determine what you want, right? I went into being a nurse practitioner not knowing any of these things. I didn't have as much guidance. I didn't have anything. All I knew is I wanted to be able to make a difference amongst the community by being a provider and being able to spend time with my patients and give them the opportunity to get the mental health care that they need. And I just happened to stumble upon all of these other things, all these opportunities out there, and it made it worth it at the end of the day. If I were going to start it all over again, I would still do it, hands down, because there's always other opportunities everywhere. It just depends on what you want. Ultimately, for me, the lifestyle was way better. I'm able to have a decent salary. I'm able to work for myself. I'm able to provide and teach other nurse practitioners, other nurse practitioner students. I'm able to give back to my community. My goal is to run my practice and then ultimately use some of the money from here in my practice to be able to funnel down to a nonprofit and to be able to give back to the underserved, or go into homeless shelters to give back, or being able to give opportunities for other students, or even give back by lecturing children of different races, colors, the minorities like myself, to be able to help everyone, especially within this mental health journey. And that's the opportunity I'm able to have because of being a nurse practitioner, and it's great for me. Ultimately, my goal was one thing, and then it went towards so many other goals, and ultimately you have to decide if it's worth it for you. Like I said, 2022, if I was going to graduate in 2025, because my program was basically a 3-year program, I would do it all over again, because I'm going to create my own opportunity out there. I'm not saying everyone's like that, because some people just want to get a job under someone else and learn and just be able to be NP, but there's other people that want to go out there, create things, and do all of those things. And either way, I think opportunity is always going to be there. We're just starting to expand. We're just starting to grow. More and more people are dealing with mental health disorders, and you just have to be able to provide that need, and ultimately it's going to be there. But like I said, you have to be willing to sacrifice in certain areas, and at the end of the day, if it's worth it for you, great. But if it's not worth it for you, then great too, because there's always other opportunities everywhere in different fields other than mental health. Yep, that's pretty much my spiel. Well guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, concerns, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And like I said, questions or concerns, comment down below. I'll be more than welcome to answer it. Or if you feel like I'm just being stupid in this video, let me know. But at the same time, I'm willing to be here. I'm willing to answer any of your questions. I'm your support system, so definitely feel free to reach out. As always guys, have a wonderful day. Until next time, bye.